Why are green screens green? Were they always green? What was used before them? The story of the green screen started with unusual techniques, tricky perspectives, a smart use of mirrors, and the green screen that we know went through basically all the colors. From the beginning, cinema had one fundamental problem. How do you put actors in places that don't exist? Before green screens, before blue screens, before compositing, filmmakers tried something smarter and harder. Instead of combining images, they designed scenes so the illusion worked inside the camera. Like the famous Buster Keaton, who managed to pull off this mind-blowing stunt with what appears to be a real background scene, but with a very smart perspective trick. In reality, he is safe on a platform specially built on top of the building. Smart perspective. Another famous example comes from Charlie Chaplin. In modern times, Chaplin skates right next to what looks like a deadly drop. But there is no drop. The floor edge is carefully framed, and the bottom floor is just painted on the glass, right in front of the camera lens. Perspective does the work. In another film in 1927, Metropolis, the futuristic city was not created with compositing in post-production, but with an in-camera illusion called the Shuftan process. Miniature city models were placed in front of a mirror, positioned at a precise angle, while parts of the mirror were scraped away to reveal real actors filmed through it. The camera captured both the miniature reflections and the live action in a single shot. This allowed actors to appear inside vast skyscraper cities without separating foreground and background, but the illusion only worked from one exact camera position, making it powerful yet extremely restrictive. And that was their limit. They only worked from one camera angle, with precise blocking, with zero freedom in movement. As soon as cinema wanted movement, these tricks stopped being enough. That's when filmmakers had to find other solutions, and one of them would be on the film itself. Double exposure. That means exposing the same strip of film twice, so two images appear at the same time. And it already did a great effect for that time. Also in the 30s, King Kong raised the bar of special effects with three techniques: matte paintings for environments, rear projection for movement, and the dunning process to separate actors from backgrounds. Matte paintings are when large parts of the scene were painted on glass and filmed together with real actors. Rear projection is when actors stay in a studio while moving footage was projected behind them. This was used a lot up until recently. The dunning process was an early way to separate actors from backgrounds before blue or green screens existed. Actors were filmed against a yellow background under blue light, while the background was filmed separately under yellow light. When the two were combined optically, the actors stayed visible, and the background replaced everything else. King Kong was the first to ever use this effect, and was improved when color film came in movies like The Thief of Baghdad. Different tricks, same goal: separate the actor from the background. These techniques worked, but they were slow, manual, and cinema needed something cleaner, something repeatable, something automatic. Chroma Key was not always possible. It needed three things to exist at the same time. First, color film. Without reliable color separation, you cannot isolate a color. Second, optical printers. They allowed filmmakers to combine film elements with precision, frame by frame. Third, color difference logic. The idea that you can remove one color while keeping the others, using the wavelengths of each primary color. Once these three existed, Chroma Key became possible. The first practical chroma key appears around 1940, also in The Thief of Baghdad. Actors were filmed in front of a blue background. The blue was isolated optically, and fantasy worlds were placed behind them. And yes, the first green screens were not green. They were blue. Blue was not chosen randomly. Human skin contains very little blue, and optical compositing separated blue more cleanly. That's why blue dominated cinema for decades. But the blue screen had limits. Edges were fragile. Fine details like hair or veils were hard to preserve. Color spill was already a problem. So in the 1950s and 60s, Disney engineers tried a different idea. They didn't change the screen color. They changed the light itself. This technique is called the sodium vapor process. Actors were filmed in front of a white screen, but the scene was lit with sodium vapor lamps, which emit a very narrow yellow wavelength. A special camera split the image in two at the same time. One image recorded the normal color scene, the other recorded a perfectly precise matte. This produced incredibly clean edges, no blue halos around the characters, costumes of any color, no problem. This technique was famously used in Mary Poppins. In scenes like Mary dancing with animated penguins, live actors and animation blend almost perfectly, decades before digital compositing existed. So, why didn't yellow screens win? Because the system was complex. The cameras were custom built, and the process was expensive. In the 90s, cinema went digital. Digital sensors don't see color like film. Most use Bayer filters, and half the pixels capture a certain color. You guessed it, green. 50% of the sensors capture green, 25% red, and 25% blue. That means the green channel has more detail and less noise. Green becomes easier to isolate than blue. This is why green screens take over. Not because they look good, but because cameras see green best, and it requires less light. You see this in films like Jurassic Park, where a lot of it was used. But green isn't perfect either, and blue screen will still be used when movie makers need detail on skin tone. Also when actors wear green, or have green props. That can be very annoying. Green is not very good when it comes to hair details, and will tend to create green glow around it. Not very good either. Blue screen will also be favored to green in dark or night scenes. Green surfaces are highly reflective and tend to bounce light back onto actors, contaminating shadows and dark areas. Blue screens are darker and produce less color spill, making it easier to preserve low-key lighting and deep blacks. Anyway, blue or green, these screens have been used for decades now, and some of the greatest movies we know were produced using these screens. But as technology goes by, filmmakers take the limits even higher. In high-end cinema, the main alternative to green and blue screens today is LED environments, also called on-set virtual production. A concrete example is The Mandalorian. Actors are filmed inside a circular stage surrounded by large LED screens. These screens display digital environments rendered in real time, synchronized with the camera's position. You might say that you've seen that before, having a screen behind the actor. And you'd be right. This technique resembles the rear projection used in older movies. But the great difference is that the rear screen did not move with the camera angle. And the LED screen in this case was powered by Unreal Engine, famous for video games rendering. This way, the camera is completely synced with the screen, which changes in real time and in a realistic manner. And on top of that, the experience for actors and camera crews is completely different. The background is visible during the shoot. Lighting from the environment hits actors naturally. There is no chroma key necessary, and no green or blue spill to clean later. Productions love to use it because actors see the environment they are acting in. Directors see the final image on set, but all of these upsides come with some downsides. LED stages are expensive, and they don't scale well for large outdoor scenes or crowds.